Good day. Welcome to our group's academic presentation. We will be speaking about the relationship between organizational power and employees' productivity at General Electric. Let me introduce you to our facilitators. Firstly, we have Tasneem. Secondly, we have Amy. Thirdly, we have Sipe. And fourthly, we have Kanesile.
What is the purpose of the study? The purpose of the study is to measure the theoretical relationship between the two empirical variables, namely power and organizational productivity in General Electric, and most importantly, to make human resource management and human resource development students more employable in 2021 by using Robin's theory and work done by Jack Welch at General Electric.
Here we have a few ground rules for our presentation. Firstly, be punctual, respect each other's opinions, please let your cell phones be on silent or vibrate, listen attentively to each facilitator, and please keep an open mind. Let me take you through the journey of this workshop. Firstly, we will define power and organizational productivity. Secondly, we'll describe the variables. Thirdly, explain the diagnostic process. Fourthly, we'll differentiate between the different bases of power. Fifthly, we'll link the organization behavioral model to work done by Jack. And lastly, we'll explain how human resource graduates can be more employable in 2021. Number 1. Define power and organizational productivity. At the end of this outcome, learners must be able to define the terms power and organizational productivity.
So what is power? According to Robbins and Judge, power refers to a capacity that the employer has to influence the employee's behavior, so the employee acts in accordance with the employer's wishes. Power focuses on tactics for gaining compliance. It also acknowledges that groups as well as individuals can use power to control other individuals or groups. In order for a power situation to exist, one person or a group needs to have control over resources the group or person values. Organizational productivity. The purpose of an organization is to transform inputs into outputs as effectively and efficiently as possible. In other words, in order for an organization to be productive, it needs to efficiently use the least possible resources and work effectively by meeting the organization's standards. Jack Welch believed that the only way to lead is to talk about companies' values, not numbers. According to Welch, numbers aren't the vision, numbers are products. He believed that if you had three measurements to live by, they would be employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and cash flow. If you've got cash in the till at the end, the rest is all going to work. Because if you've got high customer satisfaction, you're going to get a share. If you've got high employee satisfaction, you're going to get productivity. And if you've got cash, you know it's all working.
Number 2. Describing the variables. At the end of this outcome, learners must be able to identify and define dependent and independent variables, differentiate between dependent and independent variables, and lastly, draw the organizational behavioral model.
What is an organizational behavior model? So I've broken the definition into three subsections. A model is an abstraction of reality, a simplified representation of some real-world phenomena. An organization is a collection of people who work together to achieve a wide variety of goals, such as return on investment, achieving certain levels of power and prestige, and enjoying a satisfying work experience. And lastly, behavior refers to the interaction between members of an organization and the external environments. The OB model consists of two variables. Now, what is a variable? A variable is an object, idea, feeling, time period, or any other type of category you are trying to measure. Variables are empirical indicators of construct, which means that they are things that can be observed or measured. There are two types of variables, namely independent variable and a dependent variable. A dependent variable is a key factor that you want to predict and is affected by some other factors, while an independent variable is the presumed cause of some changes in a dependable variable. The group level is influenced by group decision making, leadership and trust, communication, work teams, group structure, conflict, and as well as power and politics. Good day, my name is Sipema Hlombe. Now, before we link our theoretical paradigm to the Robbins organizational behavior model, I'd first like to define what is a systems theory and as well as what the organizational behavior model consists of. So basically, what is a systems theory? A systems theory is an interdisciplinary study of systems and a framework by which one can investigate and or describe any group objectives that work together to produce some result. Every relationship in the organization system is interdependent on one another to keep the system functioning properly and to achieve homeostasis. The environment in an organization is composed of forces or institutions surrounding an organization that affect performance, operations, and resources. An internal environment consists of entities, conditions, events, and factors within the organization that influence choices and activities. A systems theory consists of an input, process, output, and feedback, which all lie under a system boundary, which may be thought of as a point at which data flows from one system to another. An input is the data which the system receives to produce a certain output. There are variables like human input, physical, financial, and information resources that lead to processes. These variables set the stage for what will arise in the organization in the future. A process are actions that individuals, groups, and businesses participate in as a result of inputs and that lead to specific outputs. It can be defined as a collection of tasks and activities that collectively change inputs into outputs. An output is clearly the accomplishment itself. If you are able to attain an equivalent outcome with less effort and labor involved, this would be an improvement. Feedback is an indication of an organization's sensitivity to environments. Negative feedback is an error message indicating deviation. The system may adjust by reducing or counteracting the deviation. Positive feedback, however, is a sign that the system may respond by amplifying or maintaining deviation.
Now we will discuss linkage of the systems theory and OB model. Now within this we get inputs, process, and outputs. So inputs are the variables such as personality, group structure, and organizational culture that lead to processes. These variables set the stage for what will occur in an organization in future. Many are determined in advance of the employment relationship. For example, individual diversity characteristics, personality, and the values are shaped by a combination of an individual's genetic inheritance and childhood environment. Group structure, roles, and team responsibilities are typically assigned immediately before or after a group is formed. Organizational structure and culture are usually the result of years of development and change as the organization adapts to its environment and builds up customs and norms. The next section is process. Now, processes are the actions that individuals, groups, and organizations engage in as a result of inputs and that lead to a certain outcome. At the individual level, processes include emotions and moods, motivation, perception, and decision making. At group level, they include communication, leadership, power and politics, and conflict and negotiation. Finally, at organizational level, processes include human resource management and change practices. Lastly, we get output. Output are the key variables that you want to explain or predict and that are affected by some other variables. Scholars have emphasized individual level outcomes such as attitudes and stress, task performance, citizenship behavior, and withdrawal behavior. At the group level, cohesion and functioning are the dependent variables. Finally, at the organizational level, we look at overall productivity and survival. Because these outcomes will be covered in all the chapters, we'll briefly discuss each year so that you can understand the goal of organization behavior will be. Now, if we look at the diagram below, input is referred to power, process is referred to the 4 E's and a P, and the output will result in organizational productivity. Number 3, differentiate between the different bases of power. At the end of this outcome, learners must be able to explain and differentiate between the different bases of power. Let's look at the various bases of power. The first is reward power. Reward power is the opposite of coercive power, with which individuals can comply because it produces positive benefits. Someone who can allocate rewards others view as valuable will have the power over them. These rewards can be financial, such as controlling pay rates, raises, and bonuses, or non-financial, including promotions, recognition, friendly colleagues, interesting work assignments, and preferred work schedules or sale territories. An effective performance management system isn't the only human resource mechanism driving a company's success. The strategies most critical to an organization's performance relate to its people, how they are selected, rewarded, and developed so that highly capable leaders and managers are in the right roles at the right times. Walsh said, "It's not the company's responsibility to ensure its employees achieve an appropriate balance between their personal and professional lives." Next, we have legitimate power. In informal groups and organizations, possibly the most common access to one or more of the power bases is through legitimate power. It signifies the formal authority to govern and use organizational resources based on the individual's structural position in the organization. Legitimate power is broader than the power to coerce and reward. Specifically contains members' acceptance of authority of a hierarchical position. We associate power so closely with the perception of hierarchy that just drawing longer lines in an organizational diagram leads people to infer the leaders are especially powerful. Usually when bank presidents or army captains speak, tellers, school principals, teachers, and first lieutenants generally comply. Walsh believes that in an organization, employees can be broken into performance differentiation. These are methods on how to treat employees based on their performance differentiation. So 20% employees. Reward employees in the pocketbook with lots of money, with promotions, with opportunities, with a vision of where they can go. 70% employees. Give them direction and guide them to become part of the 20% group. 10% employees. Notify them that they are performing badly and that they should leave the company. Next, we have referent power. Referent power is based on identification with an individual who has desirable resources to personal attributes. If I like, respect, and admire you, you can exert power over me because I want to please you. General Electric has access to a whole world of ideas, but the only way to turn that access into a competitive advantage is to develop persuasive and instable thirst to share them and mandate to implement them. Learning organizations said, Welch has an edge. Learning translates into actions, and actions spark productivity. The idea of learning culture was simple. General Electric businesses would share knowledge from every corner of the company. Shared knowledge would provide a competitive advantage, and that advantage would translate into a higher annual growth rate. Now we have the exchange power tactic. According to Robbins and Judge, exchange tactic refers to rewarding the target with benefits or favoritism in exchange for acceding to a request. Rewarding employees for sharing knowledge method was implemented at General Electric. This method was a way to reward managers and employees for sharing ideas and putting best practices to work at every level. Welch realized that he could motivate higher levels of performance by setting goals that were much higher than managers would have set for themselves. These stretch goals often caused the managers to outperform their original targets. The phenomenon that helped increase performance was the slope of satisfaction, joined with internal competition focused on gaining a leadership position in world markets. Personal power. Many of the most knowledgeable and productive chip designers at Intel have power, but they aren't managers and they have formal power. What they have is personal power, which arises from an individual's unique characteristics. There are two bases of personal power. Firstly, the respect and admiration of others and expertise. Personal power is not mutually restricted from formal power, but it can be independent. The last base of power is expert power. This type of power is influence wielded as a result of expertise, unique skills, or knowledge. A job becomes more specialized, we become dependent on specialists to accomplish goals. It is commonly known that physicians have expertise and hence expert power. Most of us follow our doctor's guidance. Computer specialists, economists, tax accountants, industrial psychologists, and other specialists wield power as an effect of their expertise. 4. Explain diagnostic process. At the end of this outcome, learners must be able to understand how the diagnostic process works, which is your pre-test, intervention, and post-test.
In the diagnostic process, we are going to manipulate the variables by measuring the relationship between power, which is our independent variable, and organizational productivity, which is our dependent variable, by putting a process that is going to influence power to see if it changes organizational productivity. This process is called an intervention, and our intervention is the 4 P's and the 4 E's and a P, which is a leadership tool that Jack Welch used to recruit people with potential into leadership positions. In the pretest, here we are measuring power and we are dividing it into productivity. Here we are trying to predict and measure the relationship between power and organizational productivity before the interventions were implemented. The measurement method is the method that we are actually going to use to measure the dependent variable and the independent variables by making use of measuring tools such as interviews, questionnaires, focus groups, and observations.
Measurement method explained. Interviews. An interview is essentially a structured conversation where one participant asks questions and other provides answers. Managers and employees accept this as a valid method of gathering data because they can contribute their own views to the information. Questionnaires. A questionnaire is a research instrument consisting of a series of questions for the purpose of gathering information from respondents. Focus groups. A focus group discussion involves gathering people from similar backgrounds or experiences together to discuss a specific topic of interest. It is a form of qualitative research where questions are asked about their perceptions, attitudes, beliefs, opinions, or ideas. And lastly, observations. During observation, employees are observed doing their jobs or specific parts of their job. This method is advantageous because it does not interrupt the work of a person or department.
The post-test, we are remeasuring the dependent and independent variables by making use of the measuring tools once again. Here we are trying to predict by introducing the intervention, which is 4 E's and a P, if power will increase. And by power increasing, naturally the organizational productivity goes up because everyone will be doing their job properly. The aim of this step is to make sure that the variable was successful after introducing the intervention.
Measure the relationship. Research hypothesis. There is a theoretical relationship between power and organizational productivity. No hypothesis. There is no theoretical relationship between power and organizational productivity.
5. Linkage of the OB model to work done by Jack Welch. At the end of this outcome, learners must be able to identify interventions used by Jack Welch and link it to the organizational behavioral model.
Work done by Jack Welch at General Electric, 4 E's and 1 P intervention. Jack Welch is oriented on return on investment. He wanted higher productivity and job satisfaction at General Electric. He believed that in order for a large organization like GE to be effective, it must be simple and people with self-confidence and intellectual self-assurance. The 4 E's and 1 P is a leadership tool that Jack used to recruit people with potential into leadership positions. The characteristics he sought in them was energy, energize, execute, and passion. Jack Welch proposed the 4 E's and 1 P framework for identifying the correct people for building winning teams. The intervention applies to any hiring decision no matter at what level of the organization. A good candidate or high performance leader is described by Jack Welch as someone who has energy, can articulate a vision and inspire others to perform, energizes, makes the tough decisions, edge, has the skill to deliver, executes, and the passion for the job.
Here we have the 4 E's and a P. These are their definitions. Energy, high energy from managers is pivotal. Energize others. A manager must have the ability to brighten their employees. Edge. Managers must have the ability and confidence to take tough decisions without the fear of being disliked. Execution. Focus on figuring out how to get the job done. Passion. Passion is what holds the E's together. Managers must be passionate about goals. Jack Welch ensured that General Electric employees carry a values card with them which outlines the key values that General Electric stands for. Now his values are: have a passion for excellence and hate bureaucracy, are open to ideas from anywhere and committed to work out, live quality and drive cost and speed for competitive advantage, have the self-confidence to involve everyone and behave in a boundaryless fashion, create a clear, simple, related-based vision and communicate it to all constituencies, have enormous energy and the ability to energize others, stretch, set aggressive goals and reward progress, yet understand accountability and commitment, see change as opportunity, not a threat, have global brains and build diverse and global teams. These values are significant because they helped establish Jack as a complex and multifaceted leader, dismissing any notion that he was a one-dimensional manager with only figures on his mind.
The purpose of Jack's interventions at GE, when we focus on our intervention, which is 4 E's and a P, is to recruit people with potential into leadership positions in order to increase higher organizational productivity.
6. Make human resource students more employable in 2021. At the end of this outcome, learners must be able to observe how to apply yourself during an interview by using Robbins' theory linked to interventions used by Jack Welch.
Important facts to remember to help HR students become more employable. Get involved in university life. Work hard and get good grades. Volunteering, work experience, networking, understand the graduate job market. Be flexible and mobile. And lastly, be confident.
My group and I would like to say thank you very much for listening to our presentation. We thoroughly hope you enjoyed it and that you've learned something from it. May you have a great day further.